Hello, human listeners and dog friends. Woof to the latter. A couple quick announcements before we get to today's episode. First of all, we do have a waiting list for those who are interested in applying to the next round of our professional course, aka our apprenticeship, which is going to be fully virtual, therefore open to anyone. It's a 6-month-long program. We will be opening it up to applications, I think probably in about a month. If you think you might be interested, make sure you sign up so that we can notify you at schoolforthedogs.com/apprenticeship 2022. Also, we are doing something special this month at School for the Dogs. We are running free virtual consults. These are open to anyone who hasn't worked with us before and are actually being run by some of our most recently graduated apprentices. If you're looking to learn more about our services, learn a little bit more about how training may help your dog, or maybe you're interested in becoming a trainer, you should totally sign up for one of these. You may do so at schoolforthedogs.com/free consult. Again, we are only doing these through the end of February, and there are limited spots available. So go get one of those spots now. Click and treat. And now about today's episode. Today I am rebroadcasting one of my favorite interviews I think that I've ever done for School for the Dogs podcast, and I'm doing this as part of my new Betty White inspired Best Pet Ever series. This is a conversation I had with a really wonderful and interesting client of ours named Joanie about her wonderful and interesting dog, Nelson. And this episode originally aired in 2018, but Nelson and Joanie are still going strong. And I was inspired to re-air this episode both because I am sure Joanie would classify Nelson as the best pet ever, but also because of a conversation that happened in a Facebook group that I'm in, made up of dog owners in my area where I live in Manhattan. We have also a lot of clients who are in this Facebook group because it's right near where the area it covers is right near where School for the Dogs is. A few weeks ago, someone in this group posted that they had been bitten by a dog at the local dog park, and the dog was mentioned by name and described, and the person was saying that they were trying to track down the dog's owner in order to get reimbursed the $900 that they had to spend to cover the medical bills associated with what sounded like a pretty nasty bite. And a bunch of other people piped up saying that they knew this dog. A few people even said that they had been bitten by the dog. Some people said the dog had worn a muzzle at some point, but now was no longer wearing a muzzle. And of course, there was plenty of outrage and empathy for the person who was attacked. But it also kind of devolved into something of, I guess, a witch hunt in the comment section about how we were going to find this dog and how the dog should be put down. And I kind of stopped paying attention to the comments after a while until a client wrote to me upset, saying that they felt that the conversation was missing any empathy for the dog and the dog's owner, and that this dog was not necessarily a bad dog. So often with these kinds of situations, it's just not that simple. And they were upset by the suggestion that the only real way to deal with the problem would be to put the dog down. This client said they wanted to say something, but were worried that they would then become the victim of this angry online mob's rage. And I said, okay, well, maybe I can say something, as I'm not in this group as a professional, but I am a professional dog trainer in this area. So I just thought I would share what I wrote, although I did follow up what I wrote saying that I agree that the owner of the dog who bit this person should be responsible for medical bills, and that the victim probably should contact a dog bite lawyer. But this is what I wrote. I just wanted to pop in and express some compassion, both for those of you who've been bit or have had a dog who's been bitten, and also for this dog's owner. He may just be ill-equipped to deal with this issue, and while it might seem obvious that a dog who has bitten should be muzzled, many people's judgment about their own dogs, or dogs in general, isn't great. Ditto their knowledge about dog behavior. Any dog can be or can become a dog who bites. It may not be the owner's fault. In my opinion, it wouldn't be a bad idea if every dog were trained to wear a muzzle, just in case. But putting a muzzle on a dog is not necessarily an easy thing for someone to do without doing some training, and someone also might not understand how necessary it is, both the muzzle and the training. I'm a certified professional dog trainer and the owner of School for the Dogs on East 7th Street, and would be happy to extend a complimentary initial behavior session to this dog's owner to help address the issues and put together both a training plan and management protocol to keep everyone safe here. If anyone knows this person and wants to mention this offer, please do have him email me directly at Annie@schoolforthedogs.com. And dear podcast listener, if you're listening and you know this person, you may extend this invitation. And then I shared the podcast episode that you're about to listen to and suggested folks listen to it, because if you can't understand how anyone could have empathy for a dog owner who has a dog who bites, I think that is about to change. Now, most people are not going to go to the extremes that Joanie has gone to for her dog. But I think listening to her story makes me think about what lengths I would go to for my dog, a dog I love and a dog I have committed to. When I decided I wanted to rebroadcast this episode, I asked Joanie if it would be okay, and she said yes, and I asked if there was anything new I should report about Nelson and her life with Nelson, and she said that during the pandemic she has gotten really into writing little songs for Nelson. I begged her to share one with me, and I was lucky enough that she said yes. So I am going to bring you into this episode with an original tune written for Nelson, the Welsh Terrier, aka Nellie.
I have something for my Nelly, something for my boy, something for his belly, it brings him so much joy. Yummies for my baby, I love you so, so much. This isn't dinner, breakfast, or lunch, it's a treat for you. Mama loves you.
And now for something completely different.
Hi, my name is Annie Grossman, and I'm a dog trainer. This podcast is brought to you by School for the Dogs, a Manhattan-based facility I own and operate along with some of the city's finest dog trainers. During this podcast, we'll be answering your questions, geeking out on animal behavior, discussing pet trends, and interviewing industry experts. Welcome to School for the Dogs podcast.
Good boy, Nelson. Oh, what a good boy.
Good boy.
Many people don't understand. No, no, they think loving is money in the hand. Your sweet loving is better than a kiss. Yeah, yeah, when you leave me, sweet kisses I miss.
I'm here with a client of ours, Joanie Comenzo, and her dog, Nelson, who is a Welsh Terrier. Is that right?
Yes.
And I wanted to speak to Joanie about being Nelson's person, because I think as a dog-human pair, they've encountered some pretty formidable obstacles and have come out on the other side, still loving each other. But let's start from the beginning. So you got Nelson when he was a puppy.
Yeah, 14 weeks.
Okay. So what made you decide to get this breed in particular, and where did you get him?
Well, I had a Yorkie that I had as a teenager, and then I went off to college, so it kind of became my mother's dog. And I knew I wanted something a little bigger, but I liked, Yorkie was a good experience. It was a terrier. I knew I wanted a terrier. Everyone told me the Jack Russell's too insane. Don't get a Jack Russell. So I listened. Funny story that I ended up with Nelson, but and I'd seen a few Welsh Terriers around. I always thought they looked interesting. And then I just did some research, and they just seemed like the perfect dog for me. They said good with kids. I thought I was going to have children. Good with kids. Good for city or, country living. They adopt well to an apartment or, like they just...
I always feel like those breed books make such grand generalizations,
Yeah.
right? And yet so many people buy their dogs based on what it says in the breed book.
And just so much, everything I read about them, I was like, I think this is going to be the dog for me. And then I researched rescues. It was impossible to get it. Welshies are just so hard to come by. There was no rescue with a dog for me. And I was like, I waited and I researched breeders. And I found, the top Welsh Terrier breeder in the country. And I was on a wait list there for a really long time. And they went through this huge interview process. They were interviewing me to make sure that I was proper for their dogs,
Which is something you want from a breeder.
Yeah.
I think you want them to be doing their due diligence too.
And I said, I want a boy and I'll wait. He could be a little older. That's okay. I thought maybe he'd be a little more potty trained that way, because 14 weeks is a little old for a puppy. Usually they're like 8 weeks, I think.
8 or 10, 12, yeah.
So one day I got the call and they said, we have your boy.
And do you know anything about the health or temperament of his parents?
His father was multiple best of breed at Westminster.
Wow.
And his grandfather also. Mm-hmm. So they saw something good in them. And his mother was also a show dog.
So you picked him up in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and, it was a 2-hour meeting. They went, before we saw the dogs, they had us, and a couple other families were there. They gave us this huge binder of information about the dogs and just, tons of stuff. And, I recorded the whole thing like a new parent, And I had a boyfriend at the time that I lived with, so he was there with me. And, after this binder and questions and the introduction to the Welsh Terrier and everything, they finally took us out to the parking lot and they had the dogs like in a little pen. And there were 2 puppies, I think 2 weeks earlier than him, in one pen, and he was separated into a separate pen. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess, he's older. Okay. So he was in a separate pen, and we got to meet our dogs. And I remember as they handed him to me, one lady handed him to me and said, your dog's an alpha. And I said, okay. I don't know what you're trying to tell me, but okay. And so I didn't think anything of it, and I put him in his travel bag, and we got in the car, and we drove all the way back to New York. This is like 2 o'clock in the morning at this point that we got home.
And this was 8 years ago, is that right?
Yeah, he's 8, so
everything seemed fine. And we took him home, and I slapped a doggy diaper on him and let him have free reign of the house just to see his house. And then into his puppy crate, you know, and that was the end of the first night because it was like 2 a.m. when we got back. The next morning we started potty training, and I think I put the leash on him for the first time in his life. Everything seemed normal. Potty training was like, there was no training. He just got it.
Did he seem like lovey and cuddly and happy to be held? And
He seemed like a normal dog, teething. He was really teething.
a little mouthy.
Mouthy, yeah. And I remember I had friends come to meet him the first week, and they were like, "This dog doesn't stop." Like he was like all over their shoelaces and their cuffs of their pants, and I was like, "Oh, he's teething," but really teething, you know. And then my mom met him, and she was like, "There's something wrong with this dog. He's not stopping," you know. Like I was like, "He's teething. He's a puppy."
But it seemed a little bit.
To everyone else, they're like, he's not stopping. He wasn't hurting anyone, but like it was those little razor teeth.
He had
that they
some
have.
intensity that seemed apparent to others.
There's a little bit of intensity. And then even the first time I brought him to my mom's, he was like leaping off furniture and flying off the stairs. And she's like, "There's something wrong with this dog." Like, but she was saying it like jokingly, but you know, he didn't stop.
Okay. When was
So those were the first clues, if you want to call it,
Right.
that, you know, he's a handful.
right? Well, plus the woman's handing him to you and saying,
Yeah, what do you
This
make
dog
of
is
that?
an alpha.
To say that.
I mean, I don't tend to adhere to the whole sort of dominance way of thinking about dogs. I think dominance can be very fluid. A dog might be, you know, in charge in one situation and not in another situation. But one thing, like in our puppy playtimes, we often talk about is how it's important for puppies to take turns, and that they generally naturally do. Sometimes you'll see a dog who seems like he has a preference for playing on the bottom or the top, but if the puppy can't be redirected or pulled off from the top very easily, it's sort of a bit of a concern. But I mean, I would say in my, you know, the 8 or whatever years I've been doing this, I think I've only ever seen 1, maybe 2 puppies that I've really been worried about, where I've really felt like this dog is over the top.
Really?
And the rest of them tend to seem like, you know, they can learn. But every now and then there's one where it seems like there's some sort of baked in, let's call it intensity.
Yeah.
That is worrisome. So when was your first moment of real concern about Nelson?
I took him to Biscuits and Bath.
Okay.
When pretty soon
And
after
you
I
live in
got
Manhattan,
him.
is that
Yeah.
right? Mhm.
And he started puppy kindergarten, and Erica Wittenberg, man, she was incredible with him, and she didn't seem to have any concerns immediately. You know, puppy kindergarten, he was great. We did obedience, advanced obedience, agility. You know, we did whatever class they had for him. And he did really well. And then as he got a little older, he was getting distracted and just wanted to play. He wasn't so interested in, learn. At that point, he was like, "I get it. I know you want me to do this for treats, but I'd rather just wander around the room." And you saw that at School for the Dogs. He just wanted to play. And so I would try to take him to the play groups, and he would just go after dogs. Like he couldn't last more than 5 minutes, and she would have to pull, because I was afraid of him. I was getting like, "Oh, this is intense." And she would have to stick her hand in and pull him off. And I was like, "I think we should just leave, like, I don't think that Nelson's going to be able to handle this." And so she was like, "All right, we'll try to work with it." And, we were always welcome to go back to the play group, but it never went well. So she started working with us one-on-one, but little things would come up like, I remember at one point, if he heard me open a yogurt, he would come charging from the other room, just vicious, like crazy. It was his yogurt. Like, like little things, like I couldn't do things in my own home that should be normal. And she would try to give me tips for it, but then he'd always find a new thing, like, you know, like it would have to keep being adjusted.
Like changing seats in the Titanic.
Yeah. So like, you know, like then there was like issues where he didn't want to be in the crate. Like it's not that he didn't want to be in there. He didn't want my hands anywhere near the door or the latch. So it became, you know, how do I get him in and out of the crate if I can't touch the crate?
Well, what would he do to communicate, hey, I don't want your hands by the crate door?
He would try to kill me through the crate, you know, like lunge and growl and don't touch the lock on my crate.
When he was in it and you were letting him out?
Yeah, or as I put him in, when I went to close it, he didn't want me fumbling with the lock. Even now, it's like a little bit of an issue. You know, it's just little things that started to just add up. It was like a lot. It wasn't just one issue. You get a trainer, they help you through it, and then you move on. Like it was always something. Like he was always stressed about something. He couldn't relax. And then, you know, there was the period when like he would do the little lip curl. And then at first we thought it was cute. We didn't, you know, like, oh, he's, you know, doing a little, but at some point there was no more warning. He would just go into attack. Like there was no more lip curl. There was no more growl. There was no sound. There was no warning.
And what did attack look like? How old are we talking at this point?
Well, the first attack started around 7-8 months. He wasn't neutered yet. So we thought we were going to fix that by neutering him. And it really just got worse from there.
So tell me about the first, what you're calling attack.
My boyfriend at the time was sitting on the couch, I think playing a video game, and Nelson was sitting in his lap. And I think I walked into the room, and Nelson, instead of attacking me, spun around and bit him in the face, like on the nose.
Oh, wow.
And split his nostril.
Wow.
So it wasn't a big cut, but the amount of blood that came out of it made it scary because, you know, the nose, I guess a lot of blood comes out of the face. You know, so we were both kind of horrified, and he went to the ER to see if he needed a stitch.
So I would say, you know, like displacement, aggression over some perceived threat. I mean, obviously you entering the room wasn't an actual threat, but
No, but
interesting that he went after your boyfriend rather than going after you.
Yeah.
But it was like whatever was closest.
And this is something he still does. Like he'll, you know, if he sees a dog he doesn't like on the leash, he'll spin around and run up my leg. I know he's not going to bite me at this point, but he gives me the warning. Like he runs up my leg like,
Interesting.
yeah.
So that must have been terrifying.
Yeah.
You had to end up at the ER because you entered the room while you're...
Well, I had to stay home with Nelson. So.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was afraid, you know, and this is when he still got to roam the apartment free. So then we started...
Did you feel guilty? Did you feel like somehow this was your fault? I'm asking because I think that is a common reaction.
Well, only because he didn't initially want the dog and I did.
Okay.
Like his dog had just died, so he wasn't ready. But I wanted the dog.
So what was your next moment? Let's call it.
Well, then things like that kept continuing. Like the lunging out of nowhere, like you walk into the room, he'd leap off the couch and come after you. He didn't always make contact, or sometimes it was just a little mouthy, but no biting. But the times he would bite you, he wouldn't let go. Like it was like, you know, he was trying to really do some damage, Nelson.
So what was your, as far as dealing with these behaviors, these problems, was your first reaction to call the breeder? Did you find a trainer? This was before we met, but tell me what you did.
Well, Erica was still trying to work with us.
And what kind of advice was she giving you?
You know, she would, at that point, she was still working on firm no, like being really firm. But I mean, the attacks were becoming so, I don't want to say frequent, but kind of. We looked into like, well, what are the other training what else is going on around here that we could find someone? And someone recommended another trainer that they'd seen in the neighborhood, and a few people had used and really liked the results they got. And so I met him, and he was friendly. He seemed knowledgeable. He seemed determined.
And what was his technique?
He favored Cesar Millan's techniques. And we were at the point that we were so desperate because people were telling me I had to get rid of Nelson that I was like, well, let me try. You know, we tried a positive approach with Erica, who I love to this day. I think she's amazing. But something wasn't clicking for Nelson. So I said, all right, let's try some other approach. And my boyfriend at the time, like, he believed in the Caesar Milan method. We're very different people. So we had very different, which I think kind of maybe added to the confusion for Nelson, that we were so opposite in our training methods. So we tried this new guy, and we had to sign this release and this paper. And Nelson was going to live with him for 1 week. And we couldn't see Nelson at all during that week. It was going to be intense training. And he had his own dog. And I didn't know, but he had another dog there too that he was training at the same time, which I didn't know that. And that was like a huge, I don't know what breed it was, but it was a huge dog. And then his dog was a pretty medium to large dog. Knowing now, I wouldn't have put Nelson in a situation with large dogs like that, because I know he's afraid. After one, he had said, after 1 week, if things aren't clicking, I'll give you the second week for free. And he'll stay with me an additional week. And I got the call after 1 week that he needs the second week.
Okay.
And that should have been a clue there that he couldn't do what he promised to deliver.
Now, did he give you any indication of what he was going to be doing during this magic period of time?
He said he was going to fix it.
Okay.
That's what I remember. I know he recorded everything, and he has hours and hours of footage. I've only seen clips of what... Good boy, Nelson. Good boy. Clips of what he showed me and an edited down before and after video, which...
Wasn't too impressive.
Oh, it's overly impressive. It's like ready, edited for television. Like, he was this, and I turned him into this.
I see.
And he did. When he came home, he did turn him into that for about a week and a half. And then he reverted and then got even worse.
Well, that's a problem I often point out with, you know, what's called board and trains, where you send a dog away, is, first of all, you don't know what's happening, and unless you feel very confident that
I know now what was happening.
Well, what do you think was happening?
He was choking him out. And wanted us to do that. And
So did he show you the techniques he was using?
It was, what is it called? It's not a choke collar. What's a slip lead, like the ones that Caesar Milan uses. And you tighten it. This is the extreme. This is after he isn't getting the initial warnings with the poke, that noise that Caesar makes. And then it progresses. Then you like tighten the leash a little bit to let him know, or a double tug, or to eventually you're kind of hanging him by the neck.
Great. Was there shock collars involved as well?
Not in front of me. I don't know.
So how did you feel about that?
When I saw that, I was horrified. But I didn't know. I said, well, I guess this is what has to be done. I don't know.
This is how you train a dog.
Yeah.
Right?
I didn't know. And I said, well, that's what, Caesar's, if he says he studied Caesar, and at this point he hadn't worked with Caesar, but eventually he did go train with him. So I guess maybe he was self-taught in the beginning, this particular trainer.
I mean, I'd say generally speaking, my approach is that there's nothing I think I can do with a dog that a client can't do with a dog. I want to be able to convey exactly what I'm doing, and I also want the client to feel comfortable with it and to understand why it's working. So
it worked for my boyfriend. He was able to do those techniques pretty well.
But what's the fallout? It's like, what's the fallout
I couldn't
of
do
a dog
it.
who...
So the dog was more coming after me.
Well, and also then I'm sure it contributed to you feeling like you were part of the problem, in that, like, this could work for him but not for you. And also so much of Caesar Milan stuff is like, you need to have your stuff together. You need to be
he trains the owners,
a calm, focused person, clear, collected, and then your dog will get it. Where I think, I've seen 4-year-olds train dogs, and people who have really messed up lives be good dog trainers. So I don't think you actually have to have all your shit together. But anyway, so you worked with this guy. You sent Nelson away.
He came back like a zombie.
Wow.
The look in his eye, there was no look in his eyes.
Wow.
And he was basically a zombie. And I was like, well, where's my dog? He had no personality when he came back. And I did witness some of the training in front of me, and he basically, he hung him up, and then he had him pinned down on the ground, and things that I knew I was never going to do. I couldn't do those things. You know, and then I had one vet who told me, this is the same vet that wanted to take out 14 of his teeth and call it dental disarming.
Wow.
So we never went back to that vet. But he also told me, you know, I was wearing boots. He goes, take that strong boot and kick him across the room. And he would tell me to hit him with the newspaper, which I did once. I rolled up the thing and was hitting him in the nose and hitting him. And Nelson let out this sound like, ow, like a cry like I've never heard. He was looking me in the face and crying. And then I started crying. And I'm going to cry now. I never did that again. But I was like, the vet said to do that. You know, I didn't know.
Oh, Joanie, you're breaking my heart.
I know. I tried whatever these experts were telling me. I tried every single thing.
Yeah.
You know? And then
I think there are, you know, a lot of people out there who do things to dogs because we're told to do things to dogs, and it doesn't necessarily make sense in the larger picture, but because someone's an expert.
I mean, this is the vet telling me if he attacks you, hit him with the paper. And it's just paper. It's not even like it's like a bat, you know, but still, I think he was just like, Mama, stop, you know?
Yeah.
And I only got him a couple times, but it was enough for him to cry.
Yeah. Yeah. At this point, had he bitten you yet?
Oh, plenty of times.
Yeah. Breaking skin?
He got me so good once that the blood, he got me in like the vein in my wrist. The blood was squirting and hitting the ceiling, like pulsing and hitting the ceiling. And my thoughts were like, you know, you watch movies or you hear people kill themselves, they cut their wrists. So I'm thinking, oh my God, I have minutes to live. I didn't know. You know, my head, I was like so scared. Like I see this blood hitting the ceiling, squirting. I said, this is how I'm going to die. Like he got me in the wrist. This is how people die. But, you know, the blood stopped after a few minutes.
What triggered that incident?
I went to pet him.
Wow.
I went to pet him. So, and he chased me into the bathroom and I fell into the bathtub. I remember I was like, oh my God, this, and then I looked at my wrist and the blood, it was like out of a movie, like the whole thing. And then he shook it off and he was fine. You know, like when he does these attacks, he shakes it off and he's fine. Like he'll kiss you the next minute. It's like he blacks out.
Did you ever call the breeder? And
I did. And they said they'd never heard of anything like this before happening with their dogs.
And they'd never seen any indication of anything like this before they gave him to you?
Nope.
See, it's suspicious to me that they
never
told you that he was an alpha and then...
yeah,
it's like,
and
well,
that he was
what does
separated
that
from
mean?
those other dogs. You know, his pen was separate from those other puppies when I got him.
Yeah.
They did say, I don't know if it was his dad or his grandfather, but one of them bit the judge in the ring at the dog show and was disqualified for life or something. That's a rumor I heard. I don't know.
Which might have been warranted.
Yeah. But
any dog can bite.
Anything with teeth can bite.
Anything with teeth can bite. People say, "Oh, my dog would never harm anyone, never do anything impossible."
Yeah.
And I think absolutely not true. You could have the world's sweetest, kindest dog, and if provoked,
I'm afraid.
bite.
I mean, I love dogs, and I pet almost every dog I see now. But I am afraid of all dogs now because of my own.
Wow. So after the trainer who tried to hang him, and after the vet who suggested hitting him with a newspaper, what was your next step?
I found another vet all the way uptown. She called him a lemon. She said, you got a lemon. And then she said, you know, he's going to ruin my relationship. I mean,
how old was he at this point?
1, 2. Maybe.
Wow, this was all in the first two years. Huh?
She's like, you're going to let this dog ruin your relationship. You know, this dog, like, get rid of him, basically. And the vet had said, basically, like, don't you value yourself that you're keeping this dog when he's ruining your existence? And I thought about it. I was like, well, he's the vet saying this. Is he right? Like, do I not value? But I'm thinking, I value the dog. Like,
and you loved him at that point,
this
right?
is my child. You know, this is what I got. You know, I'm 44. I think this is what I got. You know,
what did you love about him? I mean, clearly he's lovable, but to someone who doesn't know this guy,
this is my dog. This is my. this is my child. I think it'd be different if I had actual human children. Then, of course, their safety would come first. It would be a totally different situation. But if I took on the responsibility of getting this dog, it's my responsibility to take care of him.
Did you feel like it did ruin your relationship?
I think that ruined itself. But
We don't blame you.
I mean,
now.
it definitely was very, very stressful with the dog because we never knew like if he was going to attack, and then he would always have to jump in and save me if the dog was attacking me, and like I couldn't do much if he was attacking him. You know, I wasn't going to.
And what was your friends and family reaction to him?
Well, they knew that when they came over, certain things like had to take place. Like Nelson, then we started having Nelson on a leash all the time. He didn't wear the muzzle yet, but always on leash. And
Always on leash in the house.
Yeah, they knew, certain things. Like you can't just walk in and think he's going to be a regular dog and try to wrestle him or do whatever people do with dogs.
Did he bite other people besides you and your boyfriend?
He bites the people closest to him because they have access to him. He bit my mom on Christmas one year because my uncle walked in front of the appetizers between his eye line and the appetizers. My mom walked between somewhere between the two things that were going on. So he got her in the stomach. He breaks skin.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's gotten my hands mangled before, like mangled.
Did your mom say, "This is crazy, why are you doing this, Joanie"?
She keeps saying there's something wrong with this dog. I think she knows at this point that like I think of him as my child.
Yeah. So what was the advice after the vet who told you got a lemon and you
I
don't
found
value
another
life?
vet. Eventually I ended up at Heart of Chelsea, which I'm really happy with because I was looking for a vet that did also Eastern medicine because someone recommended, try holistic, try that. Everybody wants to help. So they're like, try this, try that, try whatever. But before I found that vet, I joined some Facebook groups about Welsh Terriers, and I found this lady in Canada, and her dog was doing the exact same thing as Nelson. Like, it sounded like Nelson. So I contacted her, and she said it's the thyroid. And she told me to get his blood work done by Dr. Dodds, who's in California. So when I found Heart of Chelsea, he was willing to take the blood and send it there. And I didn't think any vet was really going to listen to me. Like, they never said he had a thyroid problem before. No vet had ever said that. But Dr. Dodds is like the leading thyroid specialist for dogs. And she breaks it down by breed, sex, age, and weight. Like, there's like a crazy chart that she uses, and she said he definitely had the thyroid problem, exactly like that other Welsh Terrier in Canada. Wow. So she put him on a thyroid supplement.
And did that help?
Hasn't gotten worse. It's helped. I mean, I think a bunch of things have helped just because I'm used to him now, and we're used to each other.
And eventually you found Dr. Christensen, right?
At some point, we went to Dr. Christensen, and she put him on Prozac.
So Dr. Christensen, for listeners who aren't aware, Dr. Elise Christensen is a veterinary behaviorist. And there's only something like 60 veterinary behaviorists in the country.
Yeah.
They're basically like vets with a specialty in behavior in the same way like a psychopharmacologist is a psychiatrist with a specialty in medication. And really, in a way, I think it's like one of the most awesome areas of veterinary medicine because you're dealing a lot of the time with the way a dog feels and thinks, but with an animal you can't talk to. Also, a lot of the time behavioral issues, and I'm not saying this is the case with Nelson, I doubt it is, but it has to do with pain. A lot of the time an animal is in serious pain. Yeah. And it affects their behavior. But because we can't talk to them about, where does it hurt?
Well, we recently discovered he had an ongoing ear infection. Oh. And I was sent to one of the major hospitals in Manhattan. And their recommendation basically was to take out his entire ear canal.
Oh, my God.
So I got a second opinion at the other leading hospital. And they put him on a round of crazy antibiotics for like a month and a half. And when we went back to the checkup, it had all cleared up.
Wow.
But
So if you listen to a
comes,
certain vet, you just have a toothless, earless dog.
deaf dog, yeah.
You ended up going to Dr. Christensen.
Yeah, I think we never really finished our sessions. I think I might have credit there still. But she put him on Prozac.
Was that the first time anyone suggested not putting him on medication?
I think he was on, I hope I'm getting it right. I think it was Elavil. Is that another one? I think he was on something else first for anxiety, and nothing was clicking. So I don't know if she's the first one to suggest Prozac. I think she's the one who suggested Prozac.
And did it make any difference?
Hasn't gotten worse. I don't know what
Is he still on the Prozac?
Yeah, because it hasn't gotten worse. So why change it?
Okay. How many milligrams does he take?
40.
Is that a lot?
I've heard from people who take it that's an extreme a lot.
Were you resistant to putting him on medication?
I wanted to try everything.
Right. So
Yeah.
at this point, well, in the chronology, you got to the point where he was on leash all the time at home.
Yeah. All the time.
At some point,
So if I went to the bathroom, he went to the bathroom. If I went to the kitchen, he went to the kitchen.
and at some point, I know you started putting a muzzle on him. Was that right away? Like he has to wear a muzzle all the time?
That has only been about a year, maybe not even 2 years, I think, that he's been wearing a muzzle. At the time, my boyfriend was really against it because he said Nelson won't be able to defend himself if he gets in a fight, and he is an instigator, so he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to defend himself.
Right, but a dog with a muzzle is much less likely to start a fight, is my opinion.
Tell that to Nelson.
Now, with the muzzle, did you right away decide he needs to wear this muzzle all the time? Does he wear them? He does wear the muzzle all the time?
He has to wear it. Not in his crate. He still sleeps in a crate. He loves his crate. He slept in our bed for a little while as a puppy, but then if I got up to go to the bathroom, I couldn't get back in the bed. So that ended. It was just always crate. But he loves it. Once he's in that crate, he loves it. He loves to go into the crate now. Now it's not a problem.
Is he in the crate most of the time when you're home?
Yeah. He shakes. We tried to do couch time about a year and a half ago, and it went well the first time, and then the second time I just looked at him wrong, and he got nervous and came after me. So he prefers to be in his crate, and he likes the cover down. He doesn't want me looking at him. Our new thing that we've been working on is Mama sits next to the crate. And we do that a little bit each night. And sometimes he plays through the crate. Like I have a tug toy that we do sometimes. And sometimes he said, please get away from me. You know, like.
What was the process of having him wear a muzzle like? Did you have to do some training towards that?
He just put it right on.
Really? Oh.
He's never had a problem. He wore it a few times as a puppy. He's never had an issue with the muzzle. He was like, okay. And even now he puts his face out. Like
It's just how life is.
Just like potty training, he just knew what to do. Like I didn't have to, he just did it.
So so having a dog who does wear a muzzle, then, basically 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Except when he's in his crate.
Yeah.
What kind of reaction do you get from people having a dog in a muzzle?
Either they think it's cute and they go, oh, look at him. Or little kids think he's a horse. They say like a horse. Like I guess it looks like reins to them. Or there's the people who say, why is he wearing that? He doesn't need that. Or, oh, he hates that. Take it off. He hates wearing that. Or he doesn't bite. He doesn't bite, does he? And I'm like, yes, he does. They're like, well, he doesn't bite you. And I said, yes, he does.
Wow.
The people are like, oh, does he wear that because he eats off the ground? I said, well, sometimes he does, but this muzzle's designed for eating and drinking. So, no, he wears it because he bites. That's what when I say it like that, they just look at me like your dog bites, like it's unheard of or something.
Right. Do you feel like people blame you for his issues?
Well, they try to tell me he looks so sweet and cute. Like he doesn't really bite. And they probably think I'm talking about like a warning nip or something. And that's not what I'm talking about. It's a full-blown attack.
Right. Did you have vets then saying, you should be putting this dog down?
I think by saying get rid of him, I think that's what they meant.
Well, true, because it's like, where do you send a dog who has this kind of bite history?
I think if
people have this idea that there's some farm somewhere that takes all the bad dogs,
or send him back to the breeder.
In the world. Yeah.
What's the breeder going to do with him if they take him back?
Right.
And I couldn't send him to a rescue because someone else would have put him down.
Yeah.
You know, and I couldn't live with myself if I did that. Like I said, if I had children, human children, my own actual children, it would be a totally different story because they would be the priority.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Yeah.
At this point, it's just me and Nelson. So
I know you've heard me say this before, but people who say it's always the owner's fault, that all dog problems are because of the owner, I feel like that's a real maxim that people like to repeat, that people, it's always the owner's always the problem. It's never the dog's problem. And I think, gosh, that's so not true, because like the dogs that we see who have really serious issues at School for the Dogs always have amazing owners, because if they didn't have amazing owners who were devoted to trying to solve this problem, they wouldn't exist. No, they wouldn't be keeping these dogs.
Yeah. Like when I see people and they're like, my dog barks all the time. And I'm like, I wish that was my problem. You know, he never barks. He only barks if he knows like food. Like if he hears the doorbell, he'll go, "Ruff, ruff," like a low. And that's mama, go get the food. You know, like that's the only time he barks. He doesn't give me any other trouble.
And he's incredibly well trained. You do we've done tricks classes together with him.
I wanted him to be an actor. He took the acting class.
Yeah,
he wanted to play. Like he's not.
Yeah, but I think it's cool that you do that kind of stuff to help give his mind a workout when he, has so many other limitations. But you've taught him to jump over your leg, and he can ride a skateboard.
He can wink.
He can wink. Oh my goodness! And you taught that with a clicker, right?
Yeah. I mean, since his ear infection, he's kind of having a little trouble. Like it's kind of more of like a double blink. But
what's the cue for wink?
Wink at mama. I'll go like this, Nelson, wink at mama. I notice he does that if we're in a crowded elevator. He looks at me and starts winking. Like that's like a little cue to me.
Huh. Wow, that's really
That's something we do. Or if we're waiting in line at Walgreens for a prescription, we wink at each other. Like he just starts winking at me.
I love that.
Me too.
Well, you really, I mean, it just goes back to dog training, I think, about being about like two-way communication.
Yeah.
I say that all the time to people, like, it's not, people say, oh, you're training me. I'm like, well, kind of, but it's really like I'm training both of you to communicate better with one another, because like that's what, a relationship is about. And you're really tuned into his body language, right? Talk to me about like his, I guess we can call them displacement behaviors or stress relief behaviors.
We're basically together 24 hours a day. Maybe that's why he's so sick of me, but
no, he loves you like crazy, I think.
I talk to him all day long. I sing to him all day long. He has little songs just for Nelson. But like everything we do, he knows like certain words. Like if I say, let's go on an adventure, he knows we're leaving Stuytown. And it probably means we're going to see the CATS at Petco.
Oh, he likes to go see them?
Oh, the wall of cats. I gotta whisper it.
That's his favorite
Nelson,
thing?
The cat? Nelson, the cat?
Nelson, you want to go see some cats?
He's so relaxed right now.
All right, let's let him be.
He said, are they here?
Are there cats here?
They're not here. They're not here. You can lay down. Lay down, baby.
What is, tell me about like his stretching.
Things. So like if he knows the route to get to Petco and I take a different street, he'll go into this deep, deep stretch and he crosses his front paws and lets out like the squeaky yawn. And then it's like, okay, we're going to go this way. I see what she's doing. But like he has his certain routines. Like there's certain things like when we come home, he's on the leash with the muzzle. We come in the door. He knows he goes right to his water bowl. And we've gotten to the point where I could put my hands on him and take the muzzle off while he's drinking the water. And that's huge. I know it doesn't sound like anything, but for us, that's a huge thing that he knows that I'm just taking the muzzle off so he can drink. And before I touch him, I say mama to him. So he knows it's me. Like I never just reach for him. I know people don't relate to that, but I can't just reach for him and touch him. I always announce that I'm about to do it.
That's really smart. That's something I talk to puppy owners about, or dogs who have people who have small dogs, especially.
Yeah.
Tell your dog you're going to pick your dog up. It's nice to give them that warning.
Those words have actually become the threat when he's not behaving, which I know is bad.
What?
I'm going to pick you up. But when I actually do pick him up, I don't use those words. I just grab him.
I wonder, he's probably in some way made the association between the water and the muzzle. I wonder almost if you could use the delivery of the water to teach him that about you taking the muzzle off. Like if you started to take off the muzzle first and then gave him the water.
Sometimes I do, but he's in such a rush that he rushes into the kitchen. He's still on the leash.
Well, that if you wanted to try and train a behavior of,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hesitant to suggest it because it sounds like everything you're doing is working well enough. And
It's working,
like,
but
don't
he hasn't
mess it
gotten
up.
me.
Yeah, don't mess that up. But if you felt like experimenting, I would
Yeah.
experiment with starting to take the muzzle off, picking the water bowl up before you go out,
Oh, okay.
and then starting to take the muzzle off and offer him the water bowl as soon as you do that.
I think it would
Just
go
separating
okay.
those two things.
Yeah.
Because then you could also start adding a cue to taking the muzzle off, the cue being, like, I'm going to take your muzzle off or whatever.
Yeah, I just say mama to him
Yeah.
and he knows. Or like when he had his ear infection to put the drops in, which amazingly he let me do. I have no idea. Like certain things he lets me do. I just say mama fix. When I say mama fix, he knows I'm going to adjust something.
Interesting.
So mama fix ear. I talked to him. I used to be a preschool teacher. So I talked to him as if like very simple sentences sometimes.
Well, I
and he
think that's
knows.
smart. And by, basically you're just adding cues to things that you're doing anyway, which is the process
Yeah.
really of teaching any kind of language. But keeping it simple is key and keeping it consistent is
Yeah.
key. And I think you have really good instincts in those directions.
Thank you.
What kind of muzzle are you using and what other ones have you tried?
We basically only used the Baskerville and then they introduced the Baskerville Ultra, which
What's the difference between those two?
the original Baskerville had a blunt front part to it. And the Ultra, they changed it a little bit, I think. I think that's what the difference was. And now Coastal makes the same exact model, but it's like a more pliable muzzle. And the Baskerville Ultra is like really hard.
And
in
is
both.
he able to eat through it?
Yeah, these are designed for eating and drinking and panting. And the Coastal one, since it's pliable, he could pick up a tennis ball with it on.
So you use that one sometimes too.
Yeah, I think if I really had to worry about him biting someone, I'd put the hard one on. But when he's just me and him and he's playing outside, I put the softer one on him. But they both do, they're exactly the same. It's just they're different materials.
So having come through this journey,
Yeah.
let's call it.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. So when he's done with the water, I take him with his leash right to his cage. And he knows that there's no deviation. Like he knows that I lead him right to the cage, unhook his snoot loop, his head halter, and he goes right in. But if I hesitate or change any single thing in that routine, I could risk getting bit.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, really it's the same with people who are high anxiety, let's call it.
He's super high anxiety.
Needing routine, needing regularity.
It's like autism almost. Someone said once that it's almost like he's doggy
I think-
autistic.
well, what's interesting in that behavioral science sort of has three places where it's really been embraced more than other places, although I think behavior science applies to everything in my opinion. But
Yeah.
Animal training, one area, work management, safety management is another area. And then the probably the biggest area is applied behavior analysis with kids, specifically
Yeah.
autistic kids with issues. And it's really just about breaking things down to their smallest components, being very clear with giving information when something is done correctly, managing situations so carefully so that your child you're working with doesn't have a chance to do the wrong things.
Yeah. I always try to set him up for success. Like
Right.
whatever it is, like if I know it's going to be a problem, I just avoid it. You know, like
right. Management
there's no
is a
reason
huge
to
part of
even
it.
just see what happens. You know, like if I see a big dog coming, we'll probably cross the street unless we know the dog, or if he seems like he wants to approach it, I wait to see if he pulls me towards it without a crazy growl or anything. But like whatever the situation, like if we came in here and there were loose toys, I would know, let's take them off the floor because it's setting him up for a disaster.
Right.
You know, like I always try to just avoid any triggers for him as much as I can. And maybe I should let him experience that. I don't know. I just feel like at this point, it's better just
you're doing
to
absolutely
avoid.
the right thing. And
Oh,
I
thank
think it's, on the one hand, it like makes so much sense that it seems like duh, obvious. On the other hand, I think there are a lot of people who would say, no, he needs to learn that there should be toys on the ground and da-da-da-da-da.
Or like, why should I have to change? Like if I go to my mom's and she has like Christmas decorations out at Christmas time, like she really decorates. I always say like, can you please take them off the floor? Like anything that looks like a stuffed animal, just please take them off the floor because, he's going to go crazy. He's going to want it. He's going to think it's a toy and we won't be able to take it away from him. Like it's going to be a disaster. And she's like, but why? It's my house. And then like, she does it,
Right.
like she gets it. But like other people would be like, why? Like, why
Right.
do I have to change my life
right.
for him? And I'm like, I'm not asking anything unreasonable, Or it's like if you see a knife and you have a toddler, you're not going to leave the knife on the table.
Right. I think it's a lot of stuff that we do that we think of as like obvious with small children, but with dogs we don't.
Yeah.
We expect more of them somehow, when the fact is, they have teeth that could kill us, and toddlers don't. But I did a whole series on the podcast. I call it the dog training triad, with one episode on management, one on rewards, and one on timing. And to me, that's really like the crux of pretty much any kind of training you're doing needs to first address how you're going to create a very well managed situation where you're upping the chances of your dog succeeding and not letting your dog have a lot of opportunities to do the wrong thing, because people think of positive reinforcement as something that like we do to the animal, but every time he's bitten anyone, it's been positively reinforced, right? Because like if biting feels good, or negatively reinforced, in that negative reinforcement is that something is taken away in order to encourage a behavior, and if you bite someone, they go away. So the behaviors occur. So rather than risking that behaviors you don't want to be reinforced are going to be reinforced, I think the smarter route, especially when you're dealing with a really potentially dangerous animal, is to be very thoughtful about management, which sounds like you've figured out, possibly the hard way, but that you're also doing very naturally.
People say like, does he still have to wear the muzzle? Is he always going to have to wear it? I said, yes. Like, why would I take it off and set him up for a situation where he's going to fail? Eventually he's going to bite. I know he will, and he's not going to be fixed. He'll be maintained the rest of his life, but he's not going to be fixed. Nothing's going to fix it.
Knowing what you know now about life with Nelson, and I guess dog training in general, if you could go back and talk to yourself when, for instance, you were sending him away to the person who was choking him, or to the vet who suggested hitting him, and what advice would you give yourself as far as training goes?
God, I guess I should have listened to my instinct when I thought, well, I did, because I never went back to that vet, but like when it doesn't sound right, like when I first saw the methods of him putting his hands all over Nelson, like you have to with like all that poking and I knew that it just didn't sound right. I just think maybe I should have just trusted that, I had a Yorkie. We never did it. We never had training. We didn't know anything about dogs, and he was fine. Right. I could do whatever I wanted to him. And like, I never had to think about like being dominant or being in charge all the time, or like, you have to show that you're the boss. I never even thought about anything like that. It was our baby. Like his name was Teddy. We all carried him around like a baby. We treated him, and he never bit us. So I didn't think that the advice I was getting from these other people about being dominant and, I don't think that's why he was biting. Because I'm only comparing it to my Yorkie, but I never had to do any of that to make him not bite me. He just, like you could baby your dog and he's not going to bite you.
Well, you could baby this dog though, and he might bite you. But.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying.
But like, you could also hit him with a newspaper and he might bite you.
Exactly.
Right?
Like people baby their dogs all over the place and they don't get bit.
Right.
So it wasn't about me
being indulgent or.
Exactly.
Dr. Spock's whole thing was
Psychologist.
yeah, who wrote about raising children, whatever. His big thing was like, more than you think you do.
Oh,
and I believe the same thing so much with dog training, where it's like something should make sense, something should innately make sense, because we know. Same thing with children, like. We know more than we think we do because we were that baby. We know more than we think we do as animal trainers, all of us, because we are animals and we work at training each other all the time, in subtle ways. And if it doesn't make sense, I think it's always it should be a red flag. But like you were saying before, it's like when you're so desperate for a solution. I always say, like, I feel like sometimes I could go into a situation with a client and be like, okay, the thing you need to do to solve this problem is jump up and down 3 times on one foot and yell the word raspberry. Yeah. And like they would do it because it's like the expert is telling me this and she knows better than I do.
Exactly.
But like that's not the dog trainer I want to be. I want to be the dog trainer who comes in and says things in a way that makes sense. I mean, also presenting effective solutions. What do you when people say, why is he like this? What do you say?
That's just how he is. I mean, there's nobody knows. It's funny because, like, I know he's not relaxed. Even though I think he looks perfectly relaxed to a normal person coming in here.
But you're so tuned into him.
He's so on edge that he's behaving great. When we go to the vet or the groomer, he's so good. He's never given a problem at the vet or the groomer because he's so scared. He does whatever they say. He's like the perfect dog. He never... he might squirm a little on the vet table, but and we took a cab here. That's the only time he loves me, is that I could pick him up in the cab and he just melts in my arms because he's so scared of the car. Your mom
takes good care of you, Nelson.
It's because he's scared. Like right now, he doesn't know where he is. He's not sure why we're here.
Right.
And he looks perfectly happy, relaxed, and calm, but I know he's not.
It's so interesting in that it, again, it's like, he needs his routine.
He needs his routine. And even when it's time for me to grab that leash, I'm going to be a little scared because I know reaching for it could be a problem. So I'm going to wait till like he's walking a little and the leash is dragging, and I'm going to distract him a little bit, and it's going to be like a quick grab of the leash. I know all these things, but it took me 8 years
to figure it out.
Like if I'm going to pet him, first of all, he only likes to be petted on this wall that comes up to my hip that's in Stuytown. He jumps on the wall, and I know he wants me to pet him. And that's pretty much the only place he really lets me. Or, like, if we're crossing the street at the crosswalk, he'll let me rub his ears. But I can't just, like, pet him.
And I also know that you bring him to the dog park, but you guys play outside of the dog park.
Yeah,
right?
Dog park means we stand outside the fence and watch the dogs like it's television, and he loves it. But he can't handle playing like that.
It's really cool that you've figured out these ways to, like, give him a good life.
Oh, he loves dog park. Dog park?
Give him a good life, even within the confines of...
And school, he knows. School, that's your favorite word.
His head just whipped around.
We've been going to Boris and Horton.
Oh, really?
But we go only 5 or 10 minutes before close.
Oh, okay.
And I call that school too. He doesn't know. But yeah, that's like dog park. We only go like either to stand outside it, or we go when nobody's there.
So I don't, I was saying, why do you think he's like this? I think a lot of people would say something like, it must be because he was abused as a puppy or something. But I think it's more likely that, in a way you did get a lemon, in that you got a dog who just has a unique, unusual brain chemistry. Just like, some people can be raised in the perfect household and have no stresses. And what were you going to say?
Well, years ago, a neighbor told me to watch a movie called There's Something About Kevin. I think that's the name of it. And basically, it's this boy and his mother's and it's the whole family, but she knew from early on there was something psychopathic about her son, but she lets her son, and she loved him. And
Is this a true story or no? No.
I don't know if it's a true story, but it was a pretty great movie. And then eventually, he's a teenager, and then, the end is shocking. I don't want to give the end of the movie away, but the whole movie was like, it wasn't the mother's fault that her son turned out the way he was. Mm-hmm. And she was afraid of him, but she loved him because it was her son. Mm-hmm. Pretty good movie.
Yeah.
And someone told me that, like, that's Nelson.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
we all come with our own special blend of
Yeah.
that makes us who we are. And I mean, then that's evolution for you, you know. Like you plant 5 seeds from an apple tree, you get 5 different kinds of apple trees. And it's
Yeah.
like in some I don't know, dystopian world, he would be the most he might be the most prepared dog for survival.
Awesome.
Right?
I had this dream. So stupid. I had this dream like a while ago, or, you know, a zombie dream. You know, I watch all those shows. So like the zombies were coming and he fell off this little plank he was walking across. I remember he fell and all I kept saying is, just keep fighting. Because I knew he'd be okay. I was like, just keep fighting. Just keep fighting. Because I knew, like, he's not going to be fazed by these zombies.
Right?
You know?
In like a warrior scenario.
Yeah. I was like, he knows what to do.
In like a Mad Max scenario.
Yeah.
Nelson comes out on top and is
I have friends who have said if the apocalypse comes, they want him on their team. I said if I would tie him to a stick and be like just have his mouth just keep going like this.
right. He's
You know,
just,
like-
you know, he doesn't.
I would use him like he would be the weapon to save everybody.
The survival of the fittest has produced
Yeah.
a lot of, you know, dogs who are cute and cuddly and happy to be on the couch and get walked 3 times a day and kiss and cuddle. And then, but it also created Nelson.
Listen, if he got loose, he would know where to go. He would go right to Bagel Boss. He would go there for food. He would go to Ace for his cookie. He knows exactly where.
Well, you
The
know, a
stops
lot
are.
of times, you know, dogs who just like, again, so much like people.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people who are, you know, severely anxious or severely depressed or have, you know, some kind of neuroses are
Yeah.
also the smartest, most tuned in people.
He knows how to
And,
get everywhere.
You know, they say
Yeah.
like people who are very depressed are actually better at predicting the future
Yeah.
than the rest of us because they're so tuned into the way things are. And, you know, he might just have like a hyper vigilance. He's a really smart dog.
He's super smart, and I know that he knows what's going on. He knows not to bite. He just can't help it.
Yeah.
And that's
Can't
why he
help
wants
it.
to kiss you afterwards. Like he blacks out. You know, he blacks out for a minute, and he shakes it off. And he's like, "Hey, what's going on, guys?"
Yeah, well, I think a lesson
Yeah.
to be learned from the whole thing is like, not, like you said, like not every problem can be solved, but you know, that doesn't mean you can't work with it and live with
Yeah.
it. It just might require like
Maintenance.
and like a
Constant.
major upheaval of your life and a lot of commitment, which frankly, I don't think a lot of people would do. But like, you know, you have both the lifestyle, temperament, and will to
Perfect storm.
to provide for this, you know, amazing dog.
Sylvia,
Yes, Mickey?
how do you call your lover boy?
Come here, lover boy.
And if he doesn't answer,
Oh, lover boy.
and if he still doesn't answer,
I simply say, baby. Oh, baby. My sweet baby. You're the one. Baby. Oh, baby.
yeah, yeah,
My sweet baby. You're the one.
Every day at the end of the day, I say to him, Nelson, we got through another day and we made it. We just do one day at a time. That's all we can do. Good boy, Nelson. Oh, what a good boy. Good boy.
Fun dog fact of the day. According to the website thepethistorian.com, which I recently discovered and have been enjoying, up until around 1917 in Philadelphia, you could have a dog off leash whenever you wanted, as long as the dog was wearing a wire basket muzzle and a collar with the owner's name inscribed on a metal plate. So putting a dog in a muzzle was considered the ethical thing to do, and leashing a dog wasn't required.
School for the dogs.
Thank you so much for listening. And special thanks to Bill and Lizzie of Toast Garden for the amazing theme song. You can find Toast Garden at youtube.com/toastgarden. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review on iTunes. You can also support us by shopping at storeforthedogs.com, and you can learn more about us at schoolforthedogs.com. You can also connect with other listeners by downloading our brand new app. Just visit schoolforthedogs.com/community.